for the shift, you want to grow your light body. And the easiest way to grow your light body is to do different meditative purposes and helping grow the light body of the plants that you eat, so that you eat them and you gain that light body as well. And she was basically saying, meditating with the plants, talking to the plants, and all these different things that spiritual teachers have said have been good, but they haven't really articulated in the way that my science mind is, okay with.
There is a oneness of being, and what unites that oneness of being is consciousness, for lack of a better word. Plants also have consciousness, and life expresses consciousness through mind. We have very evolved minds, and other living beings have less evolved minds. Plants have very primitive minds. They're not minds that are based in neural tissue. It is more cellular based. But there is a kind of primitive patterning of mind there, of pranic. There is an energy body composed of the pranic force, the life force of those plants. And it has a certain, each life form has a certain patterning to it. And there are energetic patternings of the food we eat that are compatible, more compatible with human minds, and ones that are less compatible. Ones that have certain kinds of impacts on our mind, and ones that have other kinds of impacts. So let us say you were to eat a diet that was largely root vegetables. If you had a bit of subtlety of perception, you might notice that you felt more grounded, so to speak. If by comparison you ate a diet of tropical fruits, you might feel more light, more airy. See, the energetic patternings are a bit different. When you get into animal foods, the impact is even greater. And it is great enough that typically people into meditation, spiritual practices, like to avoid animal foods. Now, those foods that are beneficial for us, it's contingent upon that beneficial aspect of those foods is contingent a bit upon their patternings. Mushrooms, for example, they live on dead and decaying material. So their life force, their pranic force, is impacted by that connection with decay. And it has a kind of a stagnant impact on the human mind. People who do meditation, a lot of meditation, will typically avoid mushrooms. Garlic is another one. Garlic has a very strong energetic pattern that, while it can be quite good if your immune system needs boosting, for example, it will have secondary impacts on the mind that are not so good, that will make meditation more difficult. You'll see children, generally young children will avoid garlic. There is nothing that pesters. If I had garlic in my garden, there would be none of the pests, whether insect or mollusk or otherwise, that would touch the garlic. Other life forms can kind of sense this about its energy. So that is one thing. The other thing, and this is a bit more pertinent to what you were asking about, Troy, is that life lives off of life. The life in a garden will live off the life in the soil that is there from the decomposers, from the microbes, from those less evolved organisms that play a symbiotic relationship with the relatively more evolved plant forms. And if the life of the soil is vibrant, then the life of the plant will tend to be vibrant. It cannot all be reduced to that. There is the conditions in which the plant grows. Water also is impacted by energetic patterning around it. So the water, the source of the water, may have an impact on the life of the plant. The energy of more sentient life around it may have an impact. Sound patternings can impact. The purity of the atmosphere may have an impact. There are many things that can impact the vibrancy of the life force, the prana of the plant. But when a plant grows in good soil, gets good water, say water from an artesian well, water that's moved through a flow form, if there is the energetics of positive thought around it, of love, if there is the sound patternings of birds in the morning, all of these things will, in this fabric of life, will impact the vibrancy of life, the vital force, the prana of that plant. And then when it gets, or the light, to use the terminology that you were speaking from earlier, then when that living being is eaten by a human, it affects the energetic patterning of human life. And it will affect the life of the cellular tissues of the human being that eats it. And it will either, if it's very vibrant, it will make for a more vibrant life. If it's less vibrant, if it's come from a long way away, it's sat in storage, it's been on the supermarket shelf for a while, that vibrancy of life, if it's grown on soils that are very depleted, they're just pumped up with some artificial chemicals, you'll have some nutrients there, you'll have some minerals, you'll have some vitamins, but the vibrancy of life will be different, and you won't assimilate as much life force into your own being, and then your own being will not shine with as much vibrancy.
So, I've heard a lot of permaculturists talk about nutrient pathways, so that, like, for instance, you could have comfrey for a lot of good phosphorus, and but do you consider that certain plants have certain kind of energetic pathways, so that you'll have certain kinds of plants that produce their own kind of energy in a way that they're aspects of the spectrum of energy that we try to...
They all have their own energy signature. They all have their own energy pathway, so to speak. You may know that there were, and perhaps probably there still are, cultures in which people were trained in different ways than occurs in our culture. And there were some who had gifts, and they could perceive a resonance with those energetic patternings. The shaman, it was not that they needed to go through all kinds of extensive trials to find the medicinal values of plants. It was not a testing procedure like the FDA uses now. There was a kind of an intuitive resonance that they felt with the energetics of the plant that would give them a kind of an awareness as to what those plants' uses might be, their impacts, their effects on human life might be. You follow?
Yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying.
It is a capacity that in this very materialistic culture where there's a cacophony of energies. There's not much attunement to the rhythms of life. There's not those who come before who have deep knowledge, who can train and mentor others. It is not something so accessible to us. There may be some out there. There are people who are taking increasing interest in plants and in increasingly subtle ways, the healing properties of plants in particular.